Charlie Weasley is one of the most underrated in the Weasley family, probably in large part to the fact that he was completely left out of the films except for one small cameo and one or two verbal mentions. But not to worry, in this video I'm going to go over everything you need to know about his character as I explain his life story. Before we start, make sure you press that subscribe button and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a Movie Flame video. Now let's get started. Charlie Weasley was born in 1972 into the pureblood Weasley family. Unlike most pureblood families, they were not wealthy. In fact, they were quite the opposite, being very poor, and they did not hold to the pureblood mania as most other pureblood families did. They accepted all people, no matter their blood or magical ability, and this had a huge impact on Charlie while growing up and shaped his beliefs. His dad, Arthur, was a ministry employee, and his mother, Molly, was a stay-at-home mom who taught Charlie the basics of math and writing before he went off to wizarding school. He was the second born in his family after his older brother Bill, and he would have 5 younger siblings: Percy, Fred, George, Ron, and his only sister Ginny. They all grew up in the Burrow, a house that was small for the amount of people that lived in it, but was very homey and welcoming. Unlike his brothers Percy and Ron, who were both long and lanky, Charlie was shorter and stockier and shared the same build as his twin brothers Fred and George. Charlie had a broad, good-natured face, which was so freckly that he looked almost tanned, and he of course had red hair like everyone else in his family. He spent a lot of time outside doing outdoorsy things, and because of this, his arms were very muscular compared to the rest of his siblings. He was naturally good with all animals, and he loved to study and play with them even from a young age. He and his brothers often played Quidditch in their backyard, and they made Ron play keeper for them, and Charlie and the others showed no mercy on their youngest brother. One day when Charlie was young, he met Alistair Mad-Eye Moody when his father took him to work with him. Charlie was very impressed with Moody, as he was an Auror and one of the best. This was especially important, because at the time, the world needed Aurors, or Dark Wizard Catchers, because they were at the height of the First Wizarding War. In the First War, Charlie's parents were not part of the Order of the Phoenix, a group that Albus Dumbledore started to fight Voldemort and his Death Eaters, but Charlie's uncles, Fabian and Gideon Pruitt, were, and Charlie lost his uncles to the war. Charlie always looked up to them, even after their deaths, because he knew that they died fighting as heroes. When Charlie was about 9, the war finally came to an end after Voldemort fell at the hands of Harry Potter in 1981. Charlie longingly watched his oldest brother Bill go off to Hogwarts, and 2 years later, he himself got to go too. He was sorted into Gryffindor just like his parents and his older brother, and this would continue for all the Weasley children. Gryffindor! While at school, Charlie bonded with the gamekeeper Rubeus Hagrid, as they both shared a love for magical creatures. At the end of Charlie's second year, the time came for him to choose his subjects for third year, this being the first year they could choose which subjects they wanted to pursue, and Charlie immediately chose Care of Magical Creatures, as he was very outdoorsy and loved animals. He had a gift connecting with them and taking care of them, and his talent with them, his knowledge of them, and his enjoyment with them only increased when third year came around and he found his new favorite subject. Percy, Fred, and George eventually came to school as well, and Charlie enjoyed having his brothers at school for the most part, but at times it got annoying, especially when Bill was made head boy in his 7th year, and though Charlie was appointed as a prefect in his 5th year, Bill still had power over him because head boy outranks prefect. While at school, Charlie got to know a Hufflepuff girl named Nymphadora Tonks, who was also in his year, and though they did not know it yet, they would be very connected in their years after Hogwarts with the Order of the Phoenix. Charlie eventually made the Gryffindor House Quidditch team, and he was an incredible seeker. He was the best player Hogwarts had seen in many years, and when he got older, he eventually became the captain of the team, and he led his team to victory to win the Quidditch Cup. He had his brothers Fred and George try out as beaters, and was very happy when they were the obvious choice for the team. Charlie and his twin brothers had a lot of practice playing together after playing in their backyard for so many years, and them having such good chemistry on the pitch was one of the reasons why they won the Quidditch Cup. When Charlie came of age in the wizarding world and turned 17, he was able to take his apparating test, but the first time he took it, he failed. He apparated 5 miles south of where he meant to, and landed right on top of some poor old woman who was doing her shopping. The second time he took the test, however, he passed. When Charlie finished his 7 years at Hogwarts, he was so good that he could have played Quidditch professionally for England's national Quidditch team, but instead he chose to go down the path to be a dragon tamer. This was something that Oliver Wood, the keeper on the Gryffindor Quidditch team, was very disgusted by, describing the situation as Charlie running off chasing dragons instead of doing what Wood believed to be the greatest thing in the world, playing Quidditch. Charlie moved out of the burrow and moved to Romania to study and work with dragons, and he absolutely loved it. Before leaving, Charlie got a new wand, and his old wand was passed down to his youngest brother Ron, who was about to start his first year at Hogwarts. While working in Romania, Charlie received some nasty burns from wild dragons, and over time his face became weather-beaten and his arms had many shiny burns on them. While Charlie was amazing at Quidditch, and after graduating, he became known as the legendary seeker who had won Gryffindor the Quidditch Cup. Shortly after leaving Hogwarts, he was surpassed by another student according to McGonagall and Wood, and the boy who surpassed him was Harry Potter, who happened to be his brother Ron's best friend. It took several years after Charlie left, however, until Gryffindor finally won the Quidditch Cup again. A few months into his job in Romania, Charlie was visited by his parents and his sister Ginny for Christmas, and he was very glad to see them again. That same year, Ron sent Charlie a letter asking if he could take Hagrid's illegal dragon Norbert off his hands, something that Hagrid only agreed to do because he trusted and liked Charlie so much from his time at Hogwarts. Charlie asked his friends who were coming to visit him the following week if they'd be able to help him and his brother by picking up an illegal dragon from Hogwarts before making their way to Romania to see Charlie, and they agreed. Charlie wrote back to Ron saying that he'd be glad to take the dragon, but he said that it would not be easy getting him there. He told Ron that the trouble was they couldn't be seen carrying the illegal dragon, so he told Ron the best thing to do was to take the dragon to the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday. There his friends could pick it up and take it away while it was still dark. His friends successfully got the dragon from the tallest tower and made their way to Romania to give the dragon to Charlie to look after. One summer, Charlie left Romania to go on a family trip to Egypt to see his brother Bill after his father won a fair amount of gold, and it was the first time he was back with his entire family. The following summer, Charlie was contacted by the Ministry of Magic, specifically the Department of Magical Games and Sports, about the Triwizard Tournament that was being held at Hogwarts. They asked Charlie and the other dragon tamers if they would be able to supply and tame the dragons for the first task of this tournament, and Charlie agreed. He worked with the Ministry of Magic on this top secret project, and he ensured that they had 3 dragons for the tournament, although later on they would need 1 more, but I'll get to that later. That summer, Charlie came home to the burrow from Romania for the first time since he started work, and as did his brother Bill, who came from Egypt, and they came to attend the Quidditch World Cup, which was being held in England. While staying at the burrow, which was very small, Charlie and Bill slept in Fred and George's room, while Fred and George were forced to sleep in Ron's room that was now very cramped with the 3 of them and Harry sleeping in there, and to the annoyance of everyone, Percy got his own room because he needed quiet to work. As Charlie sat in the kitchen at the burrow with his brother Bill, Mr. Weasley, Ron, Fred, and George went to pick up Harry Potter, and when they returned, Charlie met Harry for the first time. Harry recognized him immediately after shaking his hand because of the many calluses and blisters under his fingers from his work with dragons. The twins told the whole room that they gave Dudley, Harry's cousin, their homemade joke candy called Ton Tongue Toffee, which made his tongue swell up so much that it fell out of his mouth, and Charlie and everyone else exploded with laughter. All of the Weasley family, as well as Harry and Hermione, were forced to eat outside for dinner as there wasn't enough room for all 11 people in the tiny house. Before dinner, Mrs. Weasley told Charlie and Bill to set up the tables outside, and while they were doing this, they decided to have some fun. They took their wands out and made the 2 tables fly high above the lawn and fight, smashing them into each other. As the other kids came out to watch, Bill's table caught Charlie's with a huge bang and knocked one of its legs off. The fun was stopped, however, when Percy opened the window on the 2nd floor and yelled at them to keep it down as he was working. Charlie and Bill made the tables come back to the ground, and with the flick of their wand, they fixed the tables and set them for dinner. During dinner, Fred, George, and Charlie talked excitedly about the World Cup. Charlie said that Ireland had to win as they flattened Peru in the semifinals, but Fred said that Bulgaria had Victor Krum, a phenomenal seeker, but Charlie retorted saying that Krum was 1 decent player and Ireland had 7 decent players. Charlie then said that he wished England had gotten through, and that their loss was embarrassing. Harry asked him why, and Charlie said that they lost to Transylvania 390-10. Had Charlie been on the team, which he very easily could have been, the outcome of that match may have been different, but to the annoyance of Wood, the world may never know. The next day, Charlie along with Bill and Percy got to sleep in while everyone else woke up at the crack of dawn to catch the port key as they were underage, but Charlie, Bill, and Percy being of age could just apparate there. The 3 of them left the burrow around midday and met the rest of them at the campsite outside the stadium. While there, Mr. Weasley introduced Charlie and the rest of his kids, as well as Harry and Hermione, to Ludo Bagman, the head of the Department of Magical Games and Sports. For the match, Charlie, who was rooting for Ireland, was in all green, matching with Bill and Ginny, who were also rooting for Ireland. While watching the match, Krum made another player hit the ground with a huge thud, and Charlie assured his little sister Ginny that he was okay. He only got plowed, which was of course what Krum wanted. At the end of the match, Krum caught the snitch so fast it made Charlie bellow out asking where it was, but seconds later, Charlie, who he himself was a phenomenal seeker, gave Krum a lot of credit for his superb catch to end the game. After the game, they all hung out in the tent, arguing enjoyably about the match, and Charlie and his father got into a friendly disagreement about cobbing, a common Quidditch foul where players use their elbows to hurt another player. Eventually, however, Mr. Weasley insisted on everyone going to bed. While they were sleeping, however, a group of ex-Death Eaters had some fun of their own. They dressed in masks and caused chaos, and tormented the Muggle landowner and his family, throwing and spinning them in the air. Charlie, along with Bill and Percy, immediately came out of the tent, fully dressed with their sleeves rolled up and their wands out. The three of them, as well as Mr. Weasley, went to help the Ministry, sprinting to the aid of the Muggle landowners. The Death Eaters all fled, however, when the dark mark was cast in the sky. During the chaos, Charlie's shirt got ripped, a minor thing to happen compared to Bill and Percy, who both had blood spilling out of either their arm or their nose. When everything settled down, they returned to the tent, and Charlie was shocked to find out that the dark mark had been cast by Harry's wand, and that supposedly, Barty Crouch's house elf was the one to conjure it, though none of them really believed this. After much talk of what had happened, they all went to bed, and Charlie's snores soon filled the tent. The next morning, they all woke up early to return to the burrow, and Mrs. Weasley embraced them all, not knowing until this moment that they were all okay after hearing what had happened. When they were all back home at the burrow, they played 3-on-3 Quidditch in the backyard, Charlie, Bill, and Fred versus George, Harry, and Ron. Charlie was also very excited to try out Harry's broom, the Firebolt, the fastest and best broom in the world. Charlie, along with Bill, went with Mrs. Weasley to see everyone off at King's Cross Station for the start of the new term. As they said goodbye to Charlie, he told them with a grin that they might be seeing him sooner than they think. When Fred asked why, Charlie told him that they would see, and he jokingly added not to tell Percy that he mentioned it, and he said in a voice mocking Percy, as it's classified information until such a time as the Ministry sees fit to release it. He was of course talking about the Triwizard Tournament, as he would be there for the first task when he supplied the dragons. After Harry was unexpectedly chosen for the tournament, making there now be 4 champions instead of 3, Charlie and the others had an even bigger job bringing one more dragon. He and around 30 wizards, around 7 or 8 for each dragon, brought the dragons to Hogwarts and housed them in the Forbidden Forest. There were 4 different kinds of dragons: a Swedish short snout, a common Welsh green, a Chinese fireball, and the Hungarian horntail, and each one of them was a nesting mother. On the way to Hogwarts, they put them out with the sleeping draft, thinking it would be best if they woke up in the dark woods. When they finally woke up in the middle of the night, they were angry, and the 30 wizards were running around taming the dragons as best they could. During the night, Hagrid and Madame Maxime came to see them, and Charlie yelled at Hagrid to keep back, as they could shoot fire at a range of 20 feet, and he said that he's even seen the Hungarian horntail shoot at 40 feet. When it was finally time to put the dragons down for the night, every wizard took their wand out and stupefied them at once. When they were finally knocked out, they forced them down and forced them into a deep sleep. After they were knocked out, Charlie went over to Hagrid and Maxime, and Charlie was very happy to see Hagrid again after all those years. As Charlie watched Maxime walk away to take a closer look, he said to Hagrid with a frown that he didn't know he was bringing her, because he didn't want her to tell her champion what the first task was, as it was meant to be a secret. Little did Charlie know, Harry now knew what the first task was, as he was there under his invisibility cloak. Charlie then turned to Hagrid and said with a smile on his face that this was a really romantic date. He then told Hagrid that all the champions had to do was get past them, and that he and the other tamers would be on hand if it got nasty. He said he didn't know why they needed nesting mothers, but that he did know he didn't want to be the one to go up against the Hungarian horntail. Charlie pointed out to Hagrid, and without knowing it, to Harry as well, the horntail's spikes protruding along every inch of its back. As Hagrid looked at them lovingly and longingly, Charlie, knowing that Hagrid loved dragons, jokingly said that he had them counted. Charlie then asked Hagrid how Harry was, and when Hagrid said he was fine, Charlie said he hopes he's still fine after he faces the dragon. He told Hagrid that he didn't dare tell his mom what Harry had to do for the first task, because she was already worrying beyond belief about him, and he did an impression of his mother worrying about Harry. When the time came for the first task, Charlie was very nervous when Harry was the one selected to go up against the horntail, but Charlie watched Harry do better than any of the other champions. Afterwards, Charlie ran up to Harry screaming excitedly that he was tied in first with Victor Crumb, and said that he did an unbelievable job. Right after the task, he hurriedly sent an out to his mom, as he had sworn he would, to tell her what had happened. Charlie and the other tamers brought the dragons back to Romania after the first task was finished, and he tried to get off work to watch Harry in the third task along with his mom and Bill, but he was unable to take off. During the third task, Harry was taken to a graveyard where he witnessed Lord Voldemort make his return to a full and powerful body, and not too long after that, Charlie was informed by Dumbledore that he was reforming the Order of the Phoenix, the society that his uncles Fabian and Gideon had died fighting for during the First Wizarding War. He and the rest of his family that were of age, minus Percy, joined right away, eager to stop Voldemort and his army of Death Eaters. Charlie was going to come home to the Order's headquarters where his family was staying that summer at number 12 Grimmauld Place, but before he did, Dumbledore talked to to him and told him to stay in Romania. Dumbledore was eager to have as many foreign wizards brought in as possible and told Charlie to try and make some contacts on his days off in Romania. Charlie was unable to make it home for Christmas during the events of the Half-Blood Prince, but he sent his love to his family. The following summer, Bill had his wedding with Fleur, and Bill asked Charlie to be his best man. Charlie of course accepted, and came home to the Burrow where the wedding was taking place. When he arrived back at the Burrow, Bill and Charlie shared a room, and this allowed the two to bond and talk excitedly about the wedding. When he arrived, Mrs. Weasley forced him into a chair, rose her wand threateningly, and announced that he was about to get a haircut. She cut his hair and made it to her standards for the wedding, though the night before the wedding, he snuck downstairs when his mom was asleep to magically regrow his hair. When Hagrid arrived at the Burrow, he made a beeline to Charlie and eagerly asked him how Norbert was doing, as he couldn't do this last time he saw him because he was with Madame Maxime and he had that dragon illegally, which he did not want Maxime to know. Charlie immediately laughed and said that they call her Norberta now. This shocked Hagrid, who questioned him as if he had heard him wrong, but Charlie confirmed what he had said. When Hermione asked him how he could tell, Charlie said that the females were more vicious. When it finally came time for the wedding, Charlie stood up on stage with Bill, standing next to his brother as Fleur walked down the aisle. Charlie smiled during the entire ceremony, so happy for his brother, and now his sister-in-law. During the reception, Charlie and Hagrid sang together in the corner after having a lot to drink. The fun of the reception was put to a stop at once, however, when Death Eaters showed up. Harry, Ron, and Hermione escaped, and the Death Eaters tried to get information out of everybody. But because Harry had used Polyjuice Potion to disguise himself at the wedding, no one outside of the Order knew that he was there. The Death Eaters did search the Burrow from top to bottom, however, and though they were rough with the Weasleys, nobody was hurt. As the war grew, Charlie started having less time for his job with dragons, and he began doing much more for the Order. When the time came for the final battle at Hogwarts, Charlie along with Horace Slughorn gathered the villagers from Hogsmeade and the families of the students that chose to fight, and together they led the reinforcements into the fight at a crucial point in the battle. They came in at the perfect time and helped lead the heroes to victory, and after Charlie watched Harry defeat Voldemort once and for all in the Great Hall, the battle was finally won. While others celebrated, however, Charlie and his family mourned the loss of so many close to them, Tonks, Lupin, and especially Charlie's little brother Fred. Following the war, Charlie did not marry or have children, as he was more interested in studying dragons than dating or starting a family. His job was just too demanding and too dangerous, especially if he were to have kids. He felt that he couldn't stand to leave his kids without a father if the worst were to happen in his highly dangerous profession, especially after how much it hurt to lose Fred. However, Charlie had many nieces and nephews that he loved and adored. The fact that Charlie never married was actually looked at more closely in the press by Rita Skeeter, as she questioned why Charlie was unmarried. This hardly bothered him, however, as Charlie had very thick skin. Charlie was more isolated than the rest of his family, and this was part of his personality. He always had a love for magical creatures, and often chose them over humans and friends. He lived a good life though, loving what he did. Charlie might have been left out of the films, but to those who know his story, they will always cherish and love the kind-hearted Charlie Weasley. Thank you so much for watching, guys. You can follow me on social media to see more of my personal life and see more of this little dude. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook for Movie Flame updates. And I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons listed below. If you want to be featured in the next video, plus get a bunch of other rewards, become a patron today. Again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you press that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great videos on the way.